Agnes Moorehead. 1952. She loved him a lot. But when she died, one line in her will told the strange truth. John Henderson Moorehead, a Presbyterian minister, and Mary Moorehead, a singer, gave birth to Agnes on December 6, 1900. Her name was Agnes Robertson Moorehead. Her mother was 17 when she was born, and having been a performer herself, she pushed her kids to be creative and use their imaginations. The arts would be important to more than just her mother. She was drawn to the stage from a very young age. She did her first show when she was 3 years old. Because her family was religious, she led the Lord's Prayer during her father's speech. This was just the beginning of her time on stage and her commitment to her faith, though both would have their bad sides. Agnes' love for acting got even stronger when she and her family moved to St. Louis, Missouri. Lucky for her, her mother was there for her and would ask, "Who are you today, Agnes?" She and her younger sister liked to act together and would sometimes even dress up for dinner, which made their parents laugh. Ruth, her older sister, would be a huge fan of Agnes. However, her father was very strict, and some of the things he did to punish her were very cruel. Even though Agnes Moorehead made her dad laugh with her playing, she still got in trouble. In fact, her father scolded her for the bad things she did as a child. When she did something wrong, her father would put her on a stack of encyclopedias and make her remember a psalm. There I sat until I could recite it. It was a great way to improve her memory, and it made her think twice before she did something wrong again. Luckily, Agnes Moorehead's strict family didn't stop her from going after everything she wanted. She was committed to her education as much as she was to acting and performing. It was in 1923 that she finished from Muskingum College in New Concord, Ohio. She found time to be in college shows while taking classes for her biology major. After that, she taught public school and got a master's degree in English and public speaking. Even though Agnes really wanted to be a professional, she had to work hard before she was lucky enough to be successful as an artist. When she graduated, she put on the play and sang in the old college try. Agnes tried out for and was cast as an understudy in company in several Broadway shows, including The Scarlet Pages, All the King's Horses, Soldiers, and Women. Agnes Moorehead didn't act in stage shows very often. Even though she was suffering like most artists do, she felt the effects of poverty the worst. She went 4 days without food because she couldn't afford it at one point. A radio station hired her, which was her big break. She sometimes went on several shows in one day, which she says was great voice training. Agnes formed a bond with someone in 1930 that she couldn't break. On June 5, she married another star, John Griffith Lee. She kept their relationship a secret and stayed out of the public eye as much as possible. But when the truth came out, it was shocking to say the least. John wasn't as good as Agnes as an actor, so he looked for other ways to make money. During their marriage, John signed up to fight in World War II. Agnes's success caused a lot of stress in their relationship, and John found it hard to control his anger. She was shocked when he called her his meal ticket, which was a very rude thing to say. It wasn't just this one time that her job would affect her personal ties. Even though they had problems, they were married for 20 years before getting a divorce on June 11, 1952. Agnes's job kept her away from her husband for a lot of their marriage, but she was said to be eager to return to him and their family farm. A year before they broke up, they took in a young boy named Sean Lee. Agnes wasn't just thinking about being a mom, as we'll see. Agnes' life would never be the same after she met a young boy by chance in the 1920s. In her first meeting with Orson Welles, he was only 7 years old. More than a decade later, in 1937, she became one of the first people to work with him on his independent theater group, Mercury Players. As long as she stayed together with Austin throughout her work, this would be very helpful for her. His work on his first big movie Citizen Kane brought Agnes joy to be with him. Agnes became known in movies through Citizen Kane, which also showed how good of an actress she was. She was thrilled to be able to star in Austin's second movie, The Magnificent Ambersons, which got her a New York Film Critics Award and an Oscar nomination. This was the first movie role she ever had. In 1954, Agnes Griffith Lee married actor Robert Gist, 2 years after getting divorced from John Griffith Lee. But there was a shocking turn in their love story. Robert was 17 years younger than her, and there were a lot of rumors in Hollywood that he had been cheating on her. This relationship was bound to end quickly. They were together for only 4 years before getting a divorce in 1958. After this, Agnes didn't have another important long-term relationship, which may have had something to do with the questions about her sexuality. Because Agnes had such a strong work ethic, her job kept growing and getting more attention. She was the lead in some shows and played a supporting role in others. In the 1950s and 1960s, she was in a lot of movies. One of the movies she was in was called The Conqueror, and being on set would be bad for everyone there. There were secret government nuclear test sites all around the Utah spot where the movie was shot. Unfortunately, the results were terrible. About half of the 220 cast and crew members who worked on The Conqueror were struck with some form of cancer at some point in their lives. Agnes' mother thought that working on this movie was what finally broke her. However, we'll talk more about that later. Agnes Moorehead got her big break on TV in 1964 with the popular show Bewitched. But she didn't take the usual route to getting the part. At first, she turned down the part of Ender, the main character's mean mother who hated people who weren't magical. She changed her mind after a strange event, though. After turning down the part of Ender, Agnes thought that was the end of her Bewitched story. But a chance meeting with the lead actress Elizabeth Montgomery made her think again. They saw each other at a department store, and Elizabeth asked Agnes in person if she would join the group. Even if Agnes came to regret it, who could say no to a personal invite like that? Agnes agreed to work on a project that she thought would not last long. She thought the show would only have 1 season. She was about to find out something big. It had been on the air for almost 10 years. Her role as Endora made her famous, and her name and face were in 8 out of every 12 shows. But she had some surprising things to say about the show. Agnes Moorehead didn't like Bewitched. She didn't like playing a witch, and she thought the writing was really bad. She called the plots hack. On top of that, she thought that the show's success had tied her permanently to the part of Ender. After the first show aired, she couldn't back out of the part once she said yes. Even after winning 6 Emmys, Agnes wasn't happy with her career being summed up in one big role, especially since people started to recognize her as a witch. "I've been in movies and played theater from coast to coast, so I was pretty well known before Bewitched, and I don't want to be known as the witch," she said. She wouldn't change her mind about the show until the very end. The way she interacted with the other lead players in the show was completely different. When it came to Elizabeth Montgomery, who played Ender's daughter, Agnes said she liked her a lot. But when it came to Dick York, who played Ender's son-in-law, there was clear tension. He even called Agnes a tough old bird. And that wasn't the only thing that made people unhappy about how she behaved at work. Her sexuality was a big part of Agnes' life that was talked about a lot in her work. The companies she worked for kept a perfect picture of her, showing her as a perfect wife and mother. But people were still very interested in what she liked. It got out that she was a lesbian, and the rumors didn't stop there. Paul Lynde, a fellow actor on Bewitched who seemed to know a lot about Agnes' relationships, made a shocking claim. He said that Agnes and Debbie Reynolds were dating, which Debbie later denied. But there was an interesting turn of events that made people even more suspicious of Agnes and Debbie's relationship. Debbie's ex-husband Eddie Fisher said he was going to write about her friendship with Agnes in the autobiography he was writing. The argument goes that if the women were just friends, there wouldn't be a problem, but Debbie threatened to sue him if he revealed the details of their relationship. That wasn't the only proof that Agnes was probably gay. Paul Moorhead says that Agnes Moorehead had a lot of close female friends in her early work, before she became too strict with how she behaved. The industry was said to have kept it a secret. Besides that, Paul says she said something very strange during a fight with one of her husbands. It seems that Agnes yelled at her husband after she caught him cheating on her and told him that if he could hang out with women outside of their relationship, she could too. It's hard to believe reports that come from Paul, though, because he was known to spread lies and gossip. Interestingly, a lot of what he says is true. In 1973, writer Bose Hadley asked Agnes about her sexuality, but she gave very vague and coy answers. She said, "Yes, you'd love to put me in their excellent company even if I don't belong in the same category." Bose put her in a group with many other actors who had been in non-heterosexual relationships. Sometimes avoiding or denying the truth can be even more telling than admitting it. For example, remember how she talked about her foster son Shaw while they were making Bewitched? Shaw moved on to college. Shaw moved out as soon as he finished. His goal was to get away from his foster mother's tight grip and begin living his life without her rules. He had a lot of beautiful places to see and many interesting ways to live his life. Sadly, none of them included Agnes Moorehead, and his choice was very firm. Even though it was one of the most important times in her life, she never saw her foster son again after he went. Agnes' health was getting worse by the time Bewitched was over, but she worked hard and made several movies and went on a Broadway tour. She even tried her hand at voice acting and did Goose in Charlotte's Web. She had no idea that these would be some of her last years as an actress. In 1973, Agnes's health started to get worse. At the time, she was playing Aunt Alicia in the Broadway version of Gigi. Musical theater acting is hard on the body, and she was in a number of musical acts. Then she got so sick that they had to replace her in the production. Agnes worked hard to get through her illness, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't easily get better. That's when she got the terrible news: Agnes had uterine cancer that had spread to her lungs. This made her case one of many that quickly grew on the Conqueror's cast and crew who were diagnosed with cancer. Her friend Debbie Reynolds says Agnes told her she would live and that she had put her fate in God's hands. After being able to fight the illness in private at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, Agnes Moorehead died of cancer on April 30, 1974, at the age of 73. Sadly, her mother outlived her, and Agnes gave her all of her jewelry and clothes. But her will went even further. She left $25,000 to Muskingum College and asked that at least one scholarship be created in her name. Half of her manuscripts went to this college, and the other half went to the University of Wisconsin. She gave her family's farm and a huge collection of Bibles and other biblical items to John Brown University. Even with all of these meetings, she left out one name that stood out. Agnes Moorehead hadn't seen her adopted son since he graduated from high school. Judy Reynolds, Agnes's friend, asked if she could look for Shaw while Agnes was sick with cancer. Agnes said no. She said that being around Shaw would make her sad. That's why he wasn't at the hospital when her cancer died. Besides that, she didn't leave him anything in her will. She said she had no children or a husband, living or dead. After this, Shaw's name and the part he played in Agnes' life became less well known. Everything she left went to the few people close to her and the groups we already talked about. Friends of Agnes said nice things about the actor. Even though some people admitted that she could be tough at times when it came to her relationship with Shaw, Lucy Ball said she tried to be a good mom to her adopted son, but she could be too controlling. In spite of this, Agnes continued to act like a guide to the people around her. Agnes' early life led her all through her work life. One of these was her love of teaching, especially when it came to helping young artists get better. Paul Gregory, her friend and producer, says she ran a school out of her house for many years where she taught acting. When you're a teacher, you're always a teacher. She will always be known as Ender from the popular show Bewitched, no matter how she felt about being called a witch. She will always be known for this part, which made her famous to new generations of moviegoers. She's been lost, but she hasn't been.